As if we needed another example of the WBC's double standards, very recently, both Ray Vargas and Julio Cesar Martinez were cleared by the WBC following adverse findings. I'm sure you've heard about this already. I'm sure you've got your own thoughts on this situation, and these are mine. Essentially, the WBC is giving these guys a pass.
Sound familiar?
For having tested positive for clenbuterol through testing recently conducted by the World Boxing Council Clean Boxing Program. However, no action was taken against either athlete since the findings were trace elements of the banned substance deemed in the tolerable threshold due to the ongoing meat contamination in Mexico. In a statement, the WBC noted that there was no deliberate intent to take clenbuterol, and the amounts found in the tests are not sufficient to register any performance-enhancing benefit on the part of either boxer. Now that right there is very disingenuous because it is neither in the WBC's or VADA's power to make such an assertion. They can't tell you with an absolute certitude why there's clenbuterol in either of these guys' systems. They can't tell you that. All they can tell you is that it's there, and they're making a leap of faith that neither one of these two guys took this substance deliberately. I mean, these anti-doping tests, they can tell you what's there, and they can even tell you how much of it is there, but they can't tell you how it got there and whether or not it was deliberate. That's what the tests can't tell you, but that's what the WBC wants you to believe, and that's how they're treating the situation. In truth, the epidemic in Mexico, this contaminated meat stuff, it might be as bad as they let on, but the reason you can characterize this as a level of favoritism is because where they're willing to give Ray Vargas and Julio Martinez the benefit of the doubt and let their fight carry on, they didn't give Dillian Whyte the benefit of the doubt. They have effectively suspended this guy's status as the mandatory challenger till February of 2021. That's over a year from now. They have effectively made a ruling before UCAD, because UCAD never suspended this guy, and VADA never found any banned substances in his system. The same VADA that just found clenbuterol in the system of Ray Vargas, in the system of Julio Martinez, they never found anything in Dillian Whyte's system, yet the WBC so decided to suspend his status till well over a year from now. In that way, you can see the favoritism. Why didn't Dillian Whyte get the benefit of the doubt that they got? The excuse in the case of Vargas and Martinez seems to be that what was found in their system was a nominal amount of clenbuterol, a trace amount. And they're saying that this is below the threshold to where there would be any performance-enhancing benefit. But who's to say that you didn't catch these guys while they were cycling off the drug, when there wouldn't be as much of it in their system? The test can't tell you that, can it? It can't tell you that this came from a tainted cow any more than it can tell you that these guys are cycling off, that's when you caught these guys while they were cycling off the drug. The test can't tell you that, but you're going to make that leap of faith for these two guys.
You'll do it for them.
Yet you didn't want to do that with Dillian Whyte. And VADA, who helps you co-run the clean boxing program, they didn't actually find anything in this guy's system. I tell you in truth that the WBC will continue to operate in this fashion so long as the boxers themselves make themselves subject to this favoritism. Yeah. I mean, essentially it's a situation to where, you know what, if you want to avoid these shenanigans and this chicanery altogether, if you don't want these guys
getting away with this,
continuing with this kind of crap, if you don't want it to go on anymore, you don't patronize them. You say, you know what, I'm not even going to go for the WBC title. I'll wait till the champion calls me out or decides to give me a shot or unify with me or something or other, but I'm going to decide to go another route. I'll go the WBA route, the WBO route, or the IBF route. But as far as climbing up the rank standings and trying to get a title shot, I'm not going to go the WBC route because we see what they've done with Dillian Whyte. We see what they've done with Devin Haney. Devin Haney participated in a final eliminator with aspirations of challenging Vasyl Lomachenko for his WBC title. And what does the WBC do? They award Loma a designation that exonerates him from having to satisfy mandatories.
franchise.
Thus, all that effort that went into Devin Haney climbing up those rank standings, it's for nothing. It's for nothing unless Loma deems it so necessary to fight him. But if he says, you know what, I don't got to fight Devin Haney, well, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And all that effort, all that time, all those sanctioning fees, It's for nothing. The only real solution here to this problem isn't fans like me and you complaining about it, making videos that we upload to YouTube to highlight the corruption. At this point in the juncture, we're all fully aware of the corruption, the favoritism, the stall tactics. We've all seen it time and time again. But that's not the solution to this problem. The real solution lies with the boxers themselves, who can so decide to say, you know what, I'm not going to pay sanctioning fees to end up with some baby belt, some trinket, or some meaningless designation. I'm not going to allow the WBC to play with my time, my blood, my sweat, my efforts, and my career. Because ultimately, that's what they're going to do. That's what they might do. That's what they did to Dillian White. That's what they've done to Devin Haney, and the list goes on. The only real solution to this problem lies with the boxers themselves, who can say, I'm not going to go that route to become a champion. If they have a champion in the same division as me, and at some point he wants to unify, great. But as far as climbing up their rank standings to try and become a champion through them, I'm not gonna bother. Because at any given moment, they'll do whatever the fuck they want, and I'll be powerless to stop them. That is the only solution. To starve them of the lifeblood that they need to continue. The sanctioning fees, okay? You starve them of that, they might just straighten up, start acting right. But until such a time, this is just gonna go on. It's just gonna go on, because how many times have we seen this kind of favoritism before? They did it to Ray Vargas and Julio Martinez. They did it to Luis Neri. They did it with Canelo Alvarez, and they're gonna continue to do it. Now, you'll notice that the WBC recently stated that the upcoming rematch between Wilder and Tyson Fury will be counted as a mandated title defense. The rematch, which is supposed to be going down in, get this, February of 2020. Whereas Dillian White's crack at Wilder, that won't come till February of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see the pattern? Do you see that all of this is being orchestrated by design? This is being done to cater to the reigning champion, Deontay Wilder, to accommodate his needs, what is at his request, because it can't be a coincidence that Wilder and Fury, they were reported to be fighting each other in February of next year, and the WBC has so chosen to delay Dillian White's crack at Wilder until the following year,
2021.
in February. You think it's a coincidence that they stalled out Dillian White's title shot and they're going to make Tyson Fury's rematch with Wilder? They're going to make that count as a mandated title defense? That would effectively negate Dillian White's rights as a mandatory if Wilder already satisfied one. If Wilder satisfies a mandatory challenger in February of 2020, he won't have to satisfy another for another 12 months. For this reason, they chose to delay Dillian White's title shot well over a year from now, to accommodate that need, to accommodate that request, to clear the way for that fight, for that rematch. None of these are coincidences, folks. This is favoritism, and all of this is by design. These aren't coincidences, folks. This is all premeditated. This is all by design. They've known as far back as July 7th. July 7th. Before Dillian White's status as a mandatory challenger was rescinded and thereby suspended, before that, they knew already that February 22nd was the date being tabbed for Wilder and Fury's rematch. They knew ahead of time.
On the 7th.
So this whole situation goes down, with Dillian White. The WBC so decides to suspend this guy, where UCAT hasn't even suspended this guy, where VADA hasn't even found anything in this guy's system. The WBC so decides to suspend his status as an interim champion, even though he's not actually suspended from fighting by UCAT. But they make this decision, and they decide that, okay, we'll tell you what. You won't be eligible to be Wilder's mandatory challenger till well over a year from now, thereby clearing the path for that February 22nd date that Tyson Fury was talking about all the way back when, in July the 7th. Whereas Dillian White's provisional suspension, that didn't come around till the end of the month, on the 30th, and you guys think these are coincidences? This is the favoritism I'm talking about. This goes back to what I've been telling you all along. The WBC's been making Dillian Whyte jump through hoops deliberately so that he don't get that crack at Deontay Wilder. They want to stall him out so that they can keep him out of the picture. And given this situation with UCAD, it was the perfect opportunity. Granted that UCAD never actually suspended Dylan. They didn't make a ruling, but that didn't stop the WBC from making a ruling. They took that as an opportunity to move him out of the picture because, ladies and gentlemen, from now till February 2021, a lot of things can happen. Who knows if Wilder's even the WBC champion by that time? Who knows if these guys won't double back on their own word and so decide that Dillian Whyte's got to fight in one more eliminator before he gets a shot at the green belt? Who knows what could happen in a sport where the news is fluid and ever changing, and you have a governing body that really can't be held to their word. What final eliminators has Tyson Fury participated in that he should be
named the mandatory?
Elevated to the mandatory challenger. What's he done to earn that position? What's he done? You know, it's actually Dillian Whyte who participated in a mandated final eliminator, but it's Tyson Fury, once again, who's getting to fight Deontay Wilder. These aren't coincidences, man. And it's not a coincidence that this is what Wilder has been talking about all along. Before Dillian Whyte, had the adverse finding, before any of that. This is what Wilder's been talking about all along, and you think it's a coincidence that these rulings from the WBC just so happen to fall perfectly in line with what Deontay Wilder wants? Very recently Wilder said that he doesn't want to be a franchise champion. That he likes the idea of mandatories or whatever.
Many people ask me about the franchise belt or whatever. I don't know much about it. It's what I'm hearing. It allows you to stay a champion. You don't have to fight mandatories and stuff like that. And if that's the case, then I'm not interested in that. Yeah, I want the mandatory. That's what makes the sport. Guys work their way up, work hard to become number one and number two, and then become a mandatory. Why would you crown someone that eliminates all that? You don't have mandatories and different things like that. I love to be able to have a mandatory, him sitting, and the more he wait, the more he get frustrated about certain things, and then when the fight comes, you had me waiting all this time. I'm ready. It's always the build up to the fight. And when you take that away, when you take certain things away from boxing, you take the charisma away from it. You take the excitement away from it.
And of course, Wilder's all in to fight mandatory challengers. Of course he's all in. Because he gets to pick who they are. Okay? Wilder himself mentioned guys climbing up the ranks to number 1 or number 2 so that they can get a crack at the champion. But the guy sitting at number 1 has yet to get a crack at the champion. Okay? Did we forget that Dominic Breazeale got a crack at Wilder as a mandatory challenger, even though Dillian Whyte was number 1. And now Tyson Fury, he's set to get a mandatory crack at the champion, even though Dillian Whyte is still number 1. I mean, of course Wilder doesn't need to be a franchise champion, or doesn't want to be, because he gets his pick of the litter. And whoever he wants to fight somehow, some way, will end up being called a mandatory challenger, thus making the WBC's rank standings in that numerical order useless. You don't need to be number 1 to become a mandatory challenger via the WBC.
Nah.
Wilder simply needs to pick you, and then the WBC will call you that. Ladies and gentlemen, I've chronicled these situations between Dillian Whyte, the WBC, and Deontay Wilder. I've chronicled them for some time now, and all that I can really derive from them is that Wilder won't willingly fight Dillian Whyte. He's happy to make him wait, so Dillian Whyte tried to go through the proper channels, and the proper channels ended up being improper. So in all likelihood, Dillian Whyte never gets that fight. The only silver lining for Dillian Whyte at this point is that he has amassed enough of a domestic following that he doesn't need to be in a title fight to make a substantial amount of money. That Dillian Whyte on UK soil is a genuine, bona fide pay-per-view attraction. Thus, he has no requirement, no necessity, no need to fight Deontay Wilder to be in a sizable fight worth sizable value. That's the silver lining. That's the upside. That Dillian Whyte
Could still get paid.
in banking on himself and making that investment, he doesn't have to wait for Wilder to give him a call to make decent money. But, just as far as that fight, consider it dead. It's not a talking point. It's not a fight that's very likely to come into fruition. That is the reality of things, and it is because this governing body is aiding a fighter in having his pick of the litter. Whether they're doing this for Canelo, or they're doing this for Vasyl Lomachenko, or they're doing this for Deontay Wilder, in some way, one way, shape, or form, that is what the WBC is becoming synonymous with and known for chicanery. Brazen, blatant chicanery. So I allude to my original point. The real power here, the solution, lies not with the boxing community, who makes no bones about voicing their opinions and their gripes with this sanctioning body. The solution doesn't rest with the fans, not in this situation. The solution rests with the boxers themselves, who can so decide to avoid the WBC, avoid their rank standings, to thereby deprive them of that power and those sanctioning fees. If you're a fighter and you're watching this and you're seeing how Dillian White's situation was treated, you're seeing how Devin Haney's situation was treated, you gotta ask yourself, do I really want to go the WBC route? I don't want to end up like those guys. I don't want to end up doing all this shit, jumping through all these hoops to try to get a crack at that guy, only for me to get there to when I'm supposed to get a crack at the guy, and then they change the rules on me. You know, I don't want that to happen. So I'm not gonna go that route. I'll go the WBO route, I'll go the WBA route, and if all else fails, I'll go the IBF route, because at least with them, I'm guaranteed my shot. The only solution is for the boxers themselves to take their careers in their own hands and steer clear of the WBC. Then maybe, if you become a champion with another organization, then maybe you can have a unification fight with whoever the WBC champion is at that time, thereby circumventing all those politics, all those shenanigans, all that tomfoolery that might go on while you're trying to climb those ranks. Because the WBC, they're supposed to be a governing body. They're supposed to add structure to the sport. But what they really are isn't a governing body. What they are is for hire. Titles made to order. Mandatories made to order. At the discretion of whoever can bring them the biggest sanctioning fees. That's what it's all about. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I hate to say it, but you know what? This is just another chapter in the same book.